Welcome back to the Racing Mind video series, where we journey deeper into the human mind than anyone has ever gone before. In this video series, we untangle the ancient mystery of mental illness and teach you what you need to know before your racing mind gets the best of you. This groundbreaking series provides answers to some of the deepest mysteries of the human mind and reveals, for the first time in history, the precise cause of mental and emotional illness and the psychophysiological basis of a wide range of psychiatric disorders and associated medical conditions. These educational videos, which present concepts that are so new that they are just beginning to make their way through the medical field, are based on thousands of hours of direct patient analysis and clinical observation in conjunction with the latest research on psychiatric disorders from around the world. In this segment of the series, we will discuss autoimmune diseases in relation to neuronal hyperexcitability. In an autoimmune disease, the immune system mistakenly attacks a part of the body, such as the thyroid gland, the joints, or the bowel, with proteins called autoantibodies. This causes the targeted organ or tissue to become inflamed and, over time, partially or completely destroyed. Although autoimmune disorders such as thyroiditis, rheumatoid arthritis, and inflammatory bowel disease are fairly common, their underlying cause remains unclear. What is known is that autoimmune diseases are commonly precipitated by a severe emotional or physical stressor, such as a divorce, a loss of employment, or another serious illness. Relevant stressors can also be of a positive nature, such as getting married, having a baby, or receiving a large promotion. Stress can be defined as any event or experience that demands a challenging psychological or physiological response. At the neurophysiological level, stress stimulates the fight or flight response, which, among other hormonal changes, includes the release of cortisol from the adrenal glands. In short spurts, cortisol helps regulate the immune system, but over time, a persistence of high levels of cortisol leads to a dysregulation of the immune system and an increase in inflammation that can ultimately manifest as an autoimmune disease. Which particular organ or organs become affected depends on a variety of factors that are unique to the individual. Another factor that can contribute to the development of an autoimmune disease is the chronic passage of partially digested food and toxins from the intestine into the bloodstream. This condition, known as leaky gut syndrome, stimulates an immune response to antigens presented by the partially digested food and toxins. These antibodies may then cross-react with various tissues of the body, causing them to become inflamed. Factors such as an unhealthy diet, poor digestion, gluten sensitivity, and emotional stress can contribute to this process by disrupting the normal balance of intestinal flora and causing inflammation of the bowel. In addition to triggering an immune response, the associated inflammation increases the excitability of the neurological system, which in turn increases one's perceived level of stress. Consequently, a vicious cycle of inflammation and stress can develop. Over time, this vicious cycle can lead to other health problems, including the production of antibodies that mistakenly attack normal healthy tissue. Those most vulnerable to this process are persons whose neurological systems are inherently hyperreactive to stress. For them, relatively small stressors can be experienced as large stressors. Moreover, because the hyperexcitable brain won't shut off, the stressors continue to be experienced long after the crisis has resolved. The identification of this common hereditary trait is at last helping scientists to get to the root of many chronic illnesses, including autoimmune diseases. Besides overreacting to stress, persons who inherit the genes for neuronal hyperexcitability tend to develop unhealthy lifestyles, poor dietary habits, and dysfunctional coping mechanisms, all of which contribute to the risk of developing a chronic illness. Neuronal hyperexcitability typically manifests as generalized anxiety, depression, mood swings, attentional difficulties, and other psychiatric symptoms, thus explaining why a high percentage of persons with autoimmune diseases have co-occurring psychiatric disorders. One of the best examples of the link between stress, neuronal hyperexcitability, and autoimmune diseases is the condition pediatric autoimmune neuropsychiatric disorders associated with streptococcal infections, better known by the acronym PANDAS. In this syndrome, a physiological stressor, strep throat, triggers an immune response in an effort to rid the body of the infectious bacteria. In the process, however, psychiatric symptoms sometimes develop or become exacerbated. The most likely explanation for this is that the inflammatory response increases the excitability of the neurological system, thus increasing the likelihood that specific circuits in the brain will become pathologically hyperactive. This, together with the added emotional stress that is created by the neuronal hyperactivity, creates even more inflammation, thus leading to a vicious cycle of inflammation and stress. Again, those who would be most vulnerable to this phenomenon would be persons whose neurological systems were inherently hyperexcitable. Lending further support to the idea that PANDAS is rooted in an inherent hyperexcitability of the neurological system is the observation that the psychiatric symptoms, which classically involve obsessions and compulsions but may also involve various other psychiatric symptoms, often precede and tend to persist long after the infection has resolved. Although some researchers have speculated that the psychiatric symptoms associated with PANDAS could be driven by autoantibodies directed against the cerebellum of the brain, serological findings have been inconsistent, and there is increasing evidence that psychiatric symptoms are bidirectionally linked to inflammation in general. From a practical standpoint, then, any person who develops an autoimmune disease should be carefully screened for the presence of pre-existing psychiatric symptoms. The presence of these symptoms should alert the clinician to the possibility that an underlying hyperexcitability of the neurological system is fueling the vicious cycle of inflammation and stress that recurrently stokes the flames of an autoimmune disease. The most effective natural ways to compensate for the gene abnormality that underlies neuronal hyperexcitability include stress reduction, establishing an early sleep schedule, regular exercise, enjoying a relaxing hobby, avoiding caffeine and other psychostimulants, and minimizing refined sugar and other foods that disrupt bowel health. If these interventions are either too difficult to implement or fail to yield satisfactory results, then treatment with neuroregulators and other brain calming medications may be necessary, particularly during high-stress periods in the person's life. In addition, cognitive behavioral and other forms of psychotherapy may be needed to reduce the mental tension that adds fuel to the smoldering embers in the hyperexcitable brain. Control your brain, control your life. We hope that you are benefiting from this video series. Portions of this video and others in this series were taken from the books The Racing Mind and Am I Depressed or Am I Bipolar? Those interested in developing a deeper understanding of this topic can also refer to the scientific publication, The Multi-Circuit Neuronal Hyperexcitability Hypothesis of Psychiatric Disorders. Please note that these materials in this video series are for educational purposes only and are not intended to guide treatment without formal evaluation. This video series is sponsored by the Binder Foundation, a charitable organization that is dedicated to the enhancement of human life through research and education on disorders of the mind, body, and spirit. If you have found this video to be of benefit to you, please share it with your family and friends. And please don't forget, your feedback is important to us.